This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. And let's get started on today's episode of Locked On MLB.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. If you don't believe me, there's my lower third right there for the YouTube watchers. How could I have that lower third if my name wasn't Sully? I am an Emmy-nominated television producer who has been a baseball podcaster for over a decade now, and now I'm in my fifth season here at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. You can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or on Instagram. You can follow me. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are looking to break 1 billion subscribers this year. We're several hundred million short. Come on, folks, let's keep it snappy there. And you be sure to tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On MLB, or check out some of the other great shows on the Locked On Podcast Network. Let's just take one completely at random right now. Oh, wait a second. What about Locked On Phillies with Connor Thomas, who happened to be sitting in the waiting room? How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Sully, I'm great. It's been a good night of baseball. It's always great to jump on with you and Locked On MLB.
Well, yeah, and this is an interesting. Let's face it, we're about a couple of weeks into this season, and for let's be frank, the defending National League champion Philadelphia Phillies is their proper title. This was the year that they were supposed to be better than the team that went to the World Series, and man, nothing has gone according to plan, whether it's right or wrong. They got off to let's not beat around the bush, a pretty bad start, and we're going up against a red-hot Marlins team who are starting Sandy Alcantara, the best pitcher in the National League right now, especially since Jacob deGrom skedaddled, the defending Cy Young Award winner. And if there was ever a game I would have gone to FanDuel to say, well, this is going to be a Phillies loss. And 9 earned runs. 9 earned runs. Alcantara's ERA jumped to 5.79. I think it will end the season lower than that. But the final scores, my mom would say, was a lot to not enough. 15-3.
Yeah.
Whoa. All right.
What a game.
Whoa. I mean, Turner was worth every penny today.
Yes, he was. And so were a couple other guys. You're not paying Bryson, Stott, and Alec Bohm a lot of money, but Stott's still hitting over 400 on the year. Alec Bohm, a 6 RBI night for the Philadelphia Phillies. He didn't get cheated in any plate appearances. A 440-foot home run for him. And it was a wonderful night. I just got back from being down at Citizens Bank Park in the press box. And, man, couldn't keep track of the runs. The official scorekeeper was having trouble because the Phillies nearly batted around twice in the same game. It was just an awesome offensive explosion, not expected because of who you were facing on the mound, but really a much-needed offensive outburst for a team that's been dealing with their fair share of injuries and had their offensive issues early on in the season. Might be a breakthrough jumping-off point for the Phillies.
I was going to throw this one little thing out there, not that this has anything to do with anything, but I just assumed a Marlins infielder was pitching by the end, but no, they split it. Alcantara pitched the first 4 innings, and then Smeltzer basically pitched the final 4 innings and saved the bullpen. I've said this on the show, and this is actually not what I was planning on talking about, but since this came up, I actually, while you were talking, I wanted to see which Marlins utility infielder pitched the final inning, yes. And they didn't. That novelty's worn off for me, having the position player finish the game in a mop-up role. I think a team should have the option to say, okay,
we're done. Wave it off.
We're waving, and to now that wave it off, and the other team has to comply.
Right.
You're like, okay, fine, we wave it off. But when there's, every once in a while it was cute, like when Wade Boggs pitched that one game for the Devil Rays, or Mark Grace once came out to pitch a garbage inning, and he started doing a Mike Fetters impersonation on the mound. So it was kind of funny. But now it's like a regular occurrence.
I know, it happens so often.
Well, because our starting pitchers aren't allowed to throw more than 7 pitches. And then the parade of relievers comes in, and then you look up and say, God, it's 12-1. Why am I going to burn through another relief pitcher? Why don't we just have, Mike, the backup catcher, pitch? But then, when he lets up a home run, hell, the first cycle in the history of the postseason was clinched because the Yankees were throwing an infielder, in a postseason game. Yeah, to me, I'm done with it. Players in pitching, to be able to wave the white flag. That's what you're doing essentially. So
I don't hate do it because it could also open up for some drama for Major League Baseball. And that, like, let's say Skip Schumacher says, "Hey, we're done," and Rob Thompson says, "No, thank you. We'll take our at bats." And then you have a little bit of bad blood going forward. But I'll tell you, Devin Smeltzer, who got the opportunity to pitch the rest of the game tonight, out of Voorhees, New Jersey, who grew up with playing baseball with a great right-handed collegiate pitcher at the D3 level. Yours truly. I played with Devin Smeltzer growing up for our AAU organization. So it was good to see him throw, even though he didn't have a good night.
Folks are locked on. I swear to every Built Bar I've ever tasted that this was not a planned, how do I get Connor to name drop the fact that he played alongside future major leaguers. I had no clue. Clue.
Tri-State Arsenal here. Product Mike Trout from Tri-State Arsenal is the biggest one to ever come out there.
Who is that?
He plays for some team that's not competitive in the American.
I'm unfamiliar with that name. Yeah,
up and comer. You'll hear about him in years to come. But yeah, it was cool to see him throw, even though it didn't go well for him. It was nice that it was a Phillies win on top of that.
Yeah. Look, at Schwarber has not been off to a good start, but he contributed today, and Schwarber will get his hits. He's not someone I'm worried about. You look up and down, obviously there's no Bryce Harper yet, and we're not expecting him to the All-Star break? I mean, when are we expecting him?
He's ahead of schedule, and he's been taking on-field BP already. They didn't put him on the 60-day injured list to start the season, which says there's a chance he may be back ahead of May 29th, which I don't think is a real chance, but Dave Dombrowski and the organization felt comfortable enough to do that. I'd be saying we're going to be looking at probably late May would be a nice estimate for Bryce Harper to start a rehab stint, and then early June would be a time for him to rejoin the team at the major league level. So ahead of schedule.
Oh yeah, I was about to say, and can I mean, look, despite the fact that there is a rumor going around that I am actually not a physician. And I want to cut that off at the pass immediately. But I can't help but wonder that, again, I'm not into kid gloves, but I'm also not into coming back too fast. I mean,
rushing back from Tommy John is
crazy. Yeah. This is your franchise, and we saw, and Harper was not at full strength last year, and yet you saw. I mean, he had his signature moment. We've been waiting for his signature moment, and he had his signature moment, especially the home run against San Diego to essentially clinch the pennant. That's the Bryce Harper postseason moment they've been waiting for a long time for.
They're calling it the shot heard around the world. I don't know if you've heard people say that. It's a brand new phrase that Bryce Harper just invented.
Well, since we found out that Bobby Thompson was cheating in the 1951 shot heard around the world, maybe that name is up for grabs. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. But look at. Harper's going to be his contract is ends, I believe, at the heat death of the universe. How long is it going?
A little bit past that.
No, okay, so he goes into a new realm of existence and being. I think it's another 7 years in his contract or something like that.
More than that, even I believe. I think he's got 8 still.
Okay, well, what I'm saying is, you want to repeat. As National League champions and maybe win 2 more games than you did last year. but and yeah, you want to have that great moment of him coming out and playing the Rocky theme, whatever. Yeah, don't mess with it. Don't mess with it. I mean,
I agree with you. And if they play like they did tonight, which you're not expecting 20 hits and 15 runs every night, but in that the offense is productive, that gives them more leeway to be cautious with Bryce Harper. But losing 2 starting first basemen in the first 2 weeks of the season puts a little pressure on everybody to contribute as quickly as they can. And I do also trust the organization to handle this the right way. And if they need to slow down Harper a little bit to make sure he's 100%, I have full faith in them doing that.
Well, there's times you gamble and times you don't.
Right.
There's time you roll the dice and times you say, let's play it safe. And time you want to make a bet on the team. And if you're going to make any bets, go to FanDuel. There you go. Grand slams, no-hitters, double plays, balks. They're all back. And there's no better place to get in the MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now, new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Sign up, place your first bet, maybe on the Phillies. Imagine if you put the bet on the Phillies pounding Sandy Alcantara, huh? I bet you'd be able to afford a house in San Francisco with that. But if you lost, you could get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you put your money on the Marlins. So don't miss your chance to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. We're with Connor Thomas of Locked On, defending National League champion Philadelphia Phillies. Okay. If you're seeing this on the YouTubes or listening to us, you see that the name of this episode is Phillies Filet Fish, which is anytime I can do an alliteration like that, especially right after Easter, any sort of fish thing is going to be great.
Perfect.
But let's just be honest. This start, they had the walk-off win against. They needed the 2 wins against Cincinnati basically to polish off what was as bad a start as you. I mean, they started the season winning only one of their first 6 games, including 2 games where they just let the Rangers score at will, and then 2 tough games against the Yankees. They won one, they lost the other. And they managed to have the wild come-from-behind victory on Saturday, but then they gave the Reds a wild come-from-behind victory on Sunday. This is a very hard team to figure out. It's obviously too early to be looking at the pitching stats. When you look at like some of the ERAs of some of the starters, that's because of those 2 games against the Texas Rangers where it was a bloodbath. But it's very difficult to get a handle on this team as to see, who exactly they are in what could be a very crowded National League wildcard race.
Yeah, it absolutely is. One thing I've been long saying about Philadelphia sports in general, and of course that covers the Philadelphia Phillies, they might be good, they might be bad. It's always interesting. There's something in the water here in Philadelphia. You can't just have a normal season. There's no 500 team that plays competitive ball and just they're all right. Like, it just doesn't happen. It's always interesting. So we've seen that in the first 10 now games of the Philadelphia Phillies season. As far as figuring it out, you're not alone. I think Rob Thompson is very much in your camp. When you could see the lineups night in and night out, totally different, which when he took over for Joe Girardi last year, partway through the season, the main thing he brought was consistency. He had a very set lineup. He kept guys very regimented, and guys knew where they were going every night. Well, started the season, he's been moving guys around a lot. They've employed multiple different relief pitchers in the closer role, using a bunch of guys in different spots. So there's some tinkering going on, trying to figure out how this team fits together best. It's still real early. I know 10 games does not a season make for anyone in Major League Baseball. But you're right. It's been a weird start. And those early season losses, while not fun, are things you can overcome still. So as long as you trust Rob Thompson, and he proved last year that he deserves the faith of this fan base, hopefully the tinkering will work out and they'll start to play more games like what you saw tonight.
Now, obviously, you know the Phillies better than I do. I went to a Phillies game last year. That was fun.
You did?
Yeah, it was a blast. It was the game where God, what's his name? He almost threw a no-hitter. Oh God, why can't I remember his name? They were playing the Nats, and all right, I have to go to baseballreference.com, the greatest website in the history of the planet Earth. Why can't I remember the name of the pitcher who nearly threw a no-hitter last year? Kyle Gibson.
Right. Yes, I forgot.
Yes.
Wow, until you bring that up, I forgot he flirted with one like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was there, but here's the deal. When Girardi outwore his welcome in Philadelphia, and I had you on the show, and I said I was a Girardi fan. I thought that was a great hire for Philadelphia, and as it turned, and I actually think that he would make a great fit for another team. I just think that he was the wrong fit for this particular team, at least from last year. And you saw when he was let go, what was that, in June?
Yeah.
That they went on, and the talk of the town was that Thompson was that, Girardi was always treating the lineup like his own personal Rubik's Cube. Mm-hmm. And like the lineup was like a newspaper. It was different every day. And then in comes Thompson, and he has the set lineup, and they go on a massive winning streak. So there was a little bit of a correlation causation that allowed him to do that. Well, now he's stumbled out of the gate and trying to play the Rubik's Cube without Harper in the middle of the lineup. And I just wonder how much of what he's doing, the goodwill that he earned for being the anti-Joe Girardi, is going to, Joe's probably watching it from afar going, look who's sticking with the lineup now, huh?
There's a lot that goes into this, right? So I talked about this, I think, on the radio, but I don't believe I brought it up on the podcast yet.
Well, bring it out here.
I'll say it again here. So Rob Thompson, when he took over, remember, he had been with this team since 2017 in some role or another. So he's known these guys, and he had the opportunity of watching months of last season before he took over as manager. So everyone sees it as, he comes in, he immediately knows what to do. Remember, he had a couple months of data and talking to these guys and knowing where he thinks they should go. This year, it's a bit of a different scenario. And I think early season tinkering is okay, especially when you're dealing with the injuries that the Phillies are dealing with this year. He's trying to figure out how they fit. Now, if we get to the end of the month here and we're pushing May and he's still changing the lineup day in and day out, then it's a conversation needed to be had. But I think it's important that he works through things to figure out how this lineup fits best together. And it's not the same situation as last year where he came in knowing the team better than what he knows some of the guys he has this year. So I'm not overly concerned about it. I know I've had a lot of tweets from concerned Phillies fans. This lineup this day, this lineup, why is this guy here? And I get it because of the Girardi thing from last year. But it's a bit of a different scenario than what Rob Thompson took over when he started his managerial duties last season. And I think he's going to get it settled by the end of this month, and we'll see a lot more of what we saw when he took over for Girardi last year.
I'm going to look at, I hate to play armchair manager, okay? And obviously Thompson knows this team, manage him to within 2 wins of the 3rd World Series title in the history of the Phillies franchise. But I'm going to recommend tomorrow, this is the lineup, okay? Write it down. Lead off with Stott, then Turner, then go Schwarber, Castellanos, Bohm, Marsh in center field, then put Cave in right field, and then Clemens at first.
That sounds great to me.
Because that lineup just beat Sandy Alcantara like a drum.
It was incredible.
So, I don't know, maybe put that out again.
That's a good pick by you. Now the catcher will be different because Garrett Stubbs had a little bit of a hamstring issue in today's game. He played the whole game, which is crazy, but he was out there to give JT Realmuto a day off, and he did his job. So he fought through some stuff, but you'll see Realmuto tomorrow. Other than that, same lineup, fine with me.
Bat Realmuto 9th, because that's where putting Realmuto. Don't mess this up. And then you have Realmuto 9th, and he gets a big hit and turns the lineup over. Come on, let's go. Come on.
Sounds great to me.
Yeah, we call it the Alcantara Buster. And you have a picture of Alcantara, like the Ghostbusters logo right there.
I'll take it. They have actually done pretty well against him historically, the Phillies have. So it's nice to see that continue. Last year, a couple wins against him. There were tighter games, obviously, than tonight. But for some reason, they find a way to just beat him. So it was nice to see it again.
They treated Alcantara like King Kong treated the wall, the villagers, just sort of trashing and pushing right in and smashing on all the villagers. That was the Phillies today. You've been trying. You're doing a Rubik's Cube, and then suddenly you took the defending Cy Young Award winner, whose last game was a complete game freaking shutout, and you bombed him.
I've got a fun one for you here. So the last 50 and 2/3 innings, Sandy Alcantara has thrown against the Philadelphia Phillies, 9 earned runs. Tonight, 9 earned runs in his time on the mound. So it was not a typical Alcantara performance, but the Phillies, I mean, they didn't get cheap ones. It's not like he walked the ballpark.
No,
they earned it tonight.
They pounded him. That's what I'm saying. Maybe try again.
Yes, it was incredible what they, I mean, and the home runs, the speed of the contact, like the exit velocity, it was incredible on some of those. It wasn't just like they were getting fisted or anything and just nice, easy loopers over the infield. It was a great performance.
Look, I'm not trying to be a manager here. Okay, I could never be a manager. I do think I could be a general manager.
Oh, okay.
I do think that I've been doing my whole life, being some sort of fantasy general manager, this or that. I did it with Stratomatic. I did it with my baseball cards. I did it with Digital Diamond. I did it with Pursuit of the Pennant. I did it with Hardball. Everything, but nothing tops the fun of Ultimate Pro Baseball GM. Why did I adopt that accent? I do not know. I became Inspector Clouseau of the Cité. Ultimate Pro Baseball GM is the coolest game played in a long time. And do you know what? It turns out that being a GM is not always that easy. Now, my team, you could use real teams or you can use the fake fantasy teams. I've always liked the fake fantasy teams because I feel like, I don't want to meddle with nature too much. So my team, the Honolulu Waves, wow, we're not doing well. I may have to fire the manager. You know what? Yeah, I may have to do that.
Thompson's not available, so you got to pick a new one.
No, got to bring in someone new. The game allows you to manage every strategic aspect of the franchise, playing through seasons, leading your franchise and fans to glory, or for the Honolulu Waves, maybe 500. Or I could build a historic dynasty. In this simulation, you're responsible for hiring the right coaches and staff, which I clearly haven't done. Manage team finances, scouting and drafting players, manage through difficult personalities and injuries, navigating your franchise through free agency and the ups and downs of the season. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Baseball GM is completely free. Playable offline, play at the go, play at a meeting, play during a Zoom call, play whenever you want to. Play while you're listening to Locked On MLB. By the way, Locked On MLB listeners get a 100% free boost to the franchise when using promo Locked On in the game store, so make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit probaseballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up on the App Store. I can't do everything for you. That's probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today and go Honolulu Waves. Welcome to Locked On Honolulu Waves. I'm your host, Sully. I'm here to crossover with Connor Thomas. All right, last segment here. Now, they got the fish. They filleted the fish in game one. I think anytime the fish come in and you're starting Alcantara, you think, okay, we got a shot at this. Wrong. But they also have a rested and ready bullpen going tomorrow. Jesus Luzardo has pitched very well.
He has. And
Aaron Nola has not.
Also correct.
Now, I think Nola's a bit of a fluke, as I said before. I mean, it's one horrible outing inflated that earned run average. So I'm not that worried, but I think this could be a really interesting matchup for the Phillies, and especially they've leapfrogged the fish, and again, it's too early, obviously, to be standings looking, but as you know, the Phillies finished one game ahead of the Milwaukee Brewers. The Milwaukee Brewers played golf throughout the playoffs, and the Phillies played in the World Series. If the two games did not go the Phillies' way last year, that did, Milwaukee would have been in, and no one would have remembered last year's Phillies teams. Maybe Rob Thompson doesn't have a job right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think, he would have been like, okay, he filled in for Girardi, but let's get a real manager in here. When you take him to the World Series, yeah, you get another shot. But you can't afford to lose many dumb games, because when you miss the playoffs by a game or two, it's those dumb games that you think of, not the games every time you get their butts handed to them, and every once in a while you got to pound another team, and some days you just beat another team. When you have a dumb game, the Phillies won a dumb game against Cincinnati the other day, and they lost a dumb game the very next day. So life evened out right there, but you can't pile up those dumb losses, because those are the ones you look back on. God, if only we did that, then, you're going to have them, but you can't have too many of them.
Yeah, the Phillies are -1 in the dumb game differential this year, because they also were up 5-0 on Jacob deGrom on opening day and then gave up a 9-run fourth inning. Oh, yeah, Aaron Nola started that game. That was the one you were just talking about. So they had multiple of those in the first 9 games of the year, which is not great. But hopefully they got it out early and they don't have one for the rest of the month. I don't know. You're right about that, though. It's such a tight division, and the margin for error is so small when you have teams like the Braves and the Mets that you're trying to compete with, and the National League looking good this year, opportunities for teams in the Central and the West. Yeah, the Phillies are going to need to compile wins early to try and have that buffer, so you're not behind the 8 ball when Bryce Harper gets back and the team gets healthier.
I'm just going to tell you this. I think you'll appreciate this. There were 2 years, 2009 and 2011, before my podcasting days. And on my blog, as a Red Sox fan, I had a metric, a completely subjective metric, called the teeth grinder dodge bullet ratio.
Love that.
The teeth grinder is the game you go, and the dodge bullet is the one you feel like, Keanu Reeves in The Matrix, so the bullet goes right over him, going, oh boy, I thought we lost that one. And it's basically the game that you feel, oh, we have this one locked up, and you lose that. Or you think, oh man, tonight's not our night, and you win that. And throughout all games, 162 in 2009 and 2011, I gave up in 2010 because the Red Sox weren't that good that year. The interesting thing, in 2009, they were the wild card team, but they had a negative teeth grinder to dodge bullet ratio. They had more teeth grinders. However, in 2011, when they had one of the great historic collapses in the history of baseball, they had a positive dodge bullet teeth grinder. It's just all the teeth grinders came at the end.
Right.
But it's and oh boy, the teeth were grinding on that final day of the season, the classic game 162 of the 2011 season. But it would be interesting. Not that I know you have enough to do with your life, but I can't do this for the Phillies because this is a visceral. It's not just reading the box score. The game was the game that the DeGrom start was the final score. What was the final score? That was the final score was 9-5. Is that any way to earn a living? 9-5. And if you look at it, they won handily. You don't know the whole story just by looking at the box score. And there's also been instances where, you lost, 5-1. Okay, we lost them, but you left the bases loaded twice. Or there might be a game, the final score is 7-5. Yeah, but they hit a grand slam in the last. It was 7-1, and then they hit a grand slam. It never felt that close. So it's a total visceral thing. But I'm saying, if you want to do it,
I'll have to credit you, but I might have to check it out. I know off the bat, so I'm already ahead of the 8 ball, so I might have to do that. They're 2 teeth grind and 1 dodge bullet so far on the year.
So they're -1. I actually like that more than a run differential at this point. How many of those?
You can take the Tampa Bay Rays and forget their run differential. I'm looking at teeth grind to dodge bullet now.
I love stats that are completely subjective. Like I do Who Owns Baseball. I pick it. I don't pick it at random. I don't just I look at, that guy hit 3 home runs. Well, this guy this guy went 4 for 5. Well, it's my stat. Yeah. And all right. Well, hey, look it. It's early, and they could still you have to find the last time the Phillies started a season in a disappointing manner and then finished with a positive outcome. You have to go all the way back to 2022.
It was a long time ago, but I think people might remember it.
It was an innocent time. I was hosting the Locked On MLB podcast at the time. All right. Well, hey, look at Connor Thomas. We're going to have you on a couple more times this season. This is a lot of fun. And Bo, by the way, I just wanted to say this right off the bat. Thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen. For your second listen, obviously make it Locked On Phillies. But for your third listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Win your league by listening to Matt and Dom every day as they bring you the best fantasy draft strategies. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hey, it's Connor Thomas of Locked On Phillies. Tell people where they can listen to your show.
Yeah, check us out at LO_Phillies on Twitter is the socials. Tweet every episode out from there. Locked On Phillies on YouTube is where you can find it. And my handle that you can see on the YouTube video here at Connor Thomas 975. I retweet all my stuff from there. So very easy guy to track down. You can go ahead to listen to all our great stuff on Locked On Phillies.
What is 975?
That's 97.5 The Fanatics, the radio station that I host on. I
didn't know it. I thought maybe it had to do with the fact that it was like some sort of hockey stat, which I don't know hockey stats as well, because if you can show the watchers on YouTube, you are indeed, you have the NHL. Look at that. Oh my God.
The bullet is going.
You are a Philadelphia Flyer is what you are. You are a Broad Street bully.
I get some looks in the press box when I walk in with this haircut. But.
Guy Parent. All right. Well, hey, you can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And please help us get to 1 billion subscribers on YouTube. We're creeping along about 900 some odd million short. But if we can get there, man, we'll have a big day. In fact, if we get to 1 billion subscribers, I'll give you all a prize.
Nice. That'll be awesome.
A little prize there. But hey, talking about the Phillies who did their job tonight, and maybe this is the beginning of a grinder-free week. With Connor Thomas of Locked On Phillies, I'm Paul Francis Sullivan of Locked On MLB. Please call me Sully.